Okay, as promised, here is a short video of the battlefield. As you can see, this is the side that the British are going to come in from, and the two deployment zones are already placed. So those are the starting points for your units, and as we come up across, as you can see, there's a slight dip there down into the road, and then we come over to where the French will deploy, and the two French deployment zones are marked there in blue. I will keep this video short. Woods on the left of the British entry point, and straight in front ploughed fields which will disrupt movement but won't add any cover. The fields over here will allow soft cover. Okay, we're now ready for the first draw. So I've got laid out on the table the counters for to go into the bag. So for the British, I've got 1 to 4 for the commanders, 4 flags. The tiffin, and then for the French 1 to 3 and 4 flags, exactly like the British. So I'm going to put them into the bag, give them a good shake up, and what I will do is I draw them out. If it's a repeat of, say, I draw a flag, I will keep going until I get a unit number. The tiffin will just go back in and get remixed in if it comes out first or second before a unit number. Okay, here we go then. So it will be the British to go first, and it's their unit number 3. British unit number 3. So here is the situation for the British. They've deployed their movable deployment point, and then have deployed their first unit under officer number 3 towards the French area. So what's going to happen next? Are the French going to continue to eat their escargot and ignore the fact that the British are on their doorstep? Let's find out what happens now as I do another roll, or should I say another pick of a chit to see what comes next. See you soon. And here we go, the drawing of the next chit. Hand goes in, fumbolo, fumbolo, flumbelow, and out comes the chit, and the chit is a red flag. So I will draw again, and the chit comes out next is red 1. Red 1. So that means the French still at their dinners. So again, English time. I think I might have to check this bag to see if there are any French counters in there. I'm sure there are. Okay, so the British have deployed their officer number 1, which includes the 3 line regiments, and with him has come officer 4, who's a status 1 officer, so he's a lower status than officer 1. So this is what it looks like from the British end of the table. And we will now go round to see what it looks like from the absent French end of the table. Absent because at the moment, as you can see, there's no French. Where are the French? They're still eating snails. So that is the status for now. Okay, we're now going to get another chit out of the bag. This will be the fourth one that comes out. So far we've had Officer 3 and 1 for the British, plus a red flag for the British. So let's see if we can get some French out onto the table, and here it comes. And it's a blue flag, So I will continue to draw now. And here's the next one, and we have a blue one. That's good. So the French are now reacting. So let's see what happens after this. So here we go. The French have deployed onto the field from the deployment point which is closest to the windmill. And that means that they have come forward as far as they can and are facing the British forces down here in the gully. Now, the idea is going to be that, as I move around here so you can see the situation from this side, the idea will be that the French will fire onto the British native contingent. Now, as they come onto the board already loaded, this gives me the opportunity of doing controlled fire. So they will present and then fire at these guys down here. Okay, so I will stop here for discussions. Okay, so here's the situation. The French, having deployed onto the field, are now going to shoot at the Indian contingent on the road. Having got excited thinking I was going to roll 19 dice hitting on 4s, 5s and 6s, after a little bit of conversation between players, looking at the terrain, the fact that the French are in a wheat field and the Indians are in a dip on the road, because half of the French are more than 6 inches away from the edge of the field. I've decided that, like I say, with conversations with other players, that I can only fire half of the French. So instead of the 19 dice, I will be rolling 11. Now that's 8 for each figure. The officer is attached, and he's a level 2 officer, and he is using 1 command initiative to direct the fire. So that then, because he's a level 2, gives 2 extra dice. And because we've also using a flag, that will also up the dice by 1, so that gives me the 11. And I'll be hitting on 4, 5s and 6s, because it's first fire, which gives a +1 to the dice roll, and a controlled volley, which gives me another +1. So 4, 5s and 6s on 11 dice. And that has given me 1, 2, 3, 4 hits. 4 hits. Okay, so now what we need to do is those 4 hits. 4. We need to roll to see how many kills and or shock that does. So the Indians are at long range, are in light cover. So I need 6s to kill. And 4s and 5s for shock. In fact, because I've paid the penalty and only firing half, I think the Indians will be in the open. So that will be 6 for a kill, 3 to 5 for shock. And I have rolled 1 shock, no kills, 1 shock. So I will put 1 shock onto the Indians. Shock's good, but you need a lot of it. So the French have fired. And they have damaged the Indians, giving them 1 point of shock, as denoted by the red token with the number 1 on, strangely enough. Now the French are now unloaded, and they cannot now load unless a flag comes out and they use it for sharp practice, or they wait for the next turn. On the last video I was explaining that the French were unloaded and that to load they could do that with sharp practice, and I actually made a mistake when I said 1 flag. Sharp practice actually takes 2 flags to be able to do that. Now we're just going to draw the next chit to see if another unit comes out. So I'll just rattle around and out it comes, and it is red 2, which is the last officer of the British. So red 2. Okay, so for deployment of Officer 2's men, the movement trays mark 9 and 12 inches, which is the deployment move for the units that you have coming on. Now the one on the left, I suppose you could move it over slightly and it would be out of sight of anything. So move it towards the right and it'd be out of sight. But I think from what the rules are saying is that you could move it on a further 6 inches. But I think that is as long as it's still out of sight. Whereas any forward movement from these 2 positions would bring them into line of sight from either a deployment point or from the troops already deployed on the table. Now if I move over this way, this again, if you wanted to go straight through the trees, the furthest one is at 12 inches, the nearest one is at 9, and then the one on the right hand side again is 12 and 9 inches. I will now just move round so that you can see what the situation is from the other side of the table. So there would be your positions, and I will just go down and show you from here. So you can just about see the edge, I think, of the movement tray. Yeah, probably can't on here unless I lift it slightly. The edge is just there, but like I say, you could always put it behind the house, and then over here you can see the movement tray there where your forces would be. Okay, so that's the situation. Of the battlefield. The choice is yours. Okay, 2 short videos. So this is British Officer number 2's deployment from the deployment point on the left hand side of the table. So they've gone forward and they've deployed behind the house here to the left between the woods and the house, and so that's their initial deployment. I'll just move the camera around so that we can have a look from over here on the French side, and you'll see that this deployment means that they can't be seen from the French deployment point there or from that one there, so they are out of sight. That means that both units can now do a further 6 inches of movement, which I will do now. Okay, I lied. It's going to be 3 videos, possibly 4. So, as you can see, the situation has moved on a little bit. The skirmishers have moved an extra 6 inches, which takes them up to the corner of the house. Now, they're armed with rifles, which means they've got quite a long range, so would be able to shoot into the French regulars over there. The Colonial Rangers, who are light troops, light infantry, for now have moved up behind the skirmishers. Now, this is one option for the British. The other option I will show you in 1 minute. So the next option would be to leave the skirmish troops where they were, but move the Rangers so that they would be moving towards the front of the house where the door is. And this is going to be totally up to the British players which option they'd like. So I will give them that, and hopefully I'll get an answer back pretty quick which one they like. Here's the view from French side. Okay. So here's the situation. The British irregular skirmishers have fired at the French regulars here. And we'll just go around and see, there they go, popping off smoke. They've actually done 1 kill and 1 shock on these guys. Now, the skirmishers have rifles, so it will actually take them 2 actions to reload. So they're slow on the fire, but they can hit at longer distances. Okay, so moving on, we're now going to do the draw for the next chit to come out of the bag. For the French, hopefully it's going to be a French unit. I think for the British, they would love Tiffin to come out. So let's see what happens. So in we go, shuffle them up a bit. I've got my eyes closed, honest. And out comes, and it is blue 2. Good news for the French. So the French officer number 2 gets to come on. Okay, we have a very important role now. Because my French officer number 1 is attached to the regulars who've just taken a kill and a shock, I have to roll because the unit that fired on them are a skirmish troop, so I need to roll to see if the officer's been killed. Now, because of skirmish, I need anything but a 1, because one guy's been killed, so it's equal to or under the amount that's killed. So in this instance, anything but a 1, my officer will be all right. If it had been regular troops firing, then in this instance, because it was only one man killed, I wouldn't have had to roll, because for regular troops it's equal to or under under the amount that's killed, not equal to. Okay, so anything but a 1. It's a 5, so my officer survives. Thankfully. Something going right for the French. Okay, so here's the situation. French Officer 2 has deployed his men, which are French Marine Infantry skirmishers. They've deployed 9 inches from the deployment point, plus a further 6 inches because they are defending in this scenario. And that means that they have now come to this point on the table. They can't form formation, so they've deployed in 2 groups, and both groups will now fire. One group at the right hand unit of regular infantry, and the other group will fire at the British lights here. So that is the situation for now. Okay, so firing. So firing the unit on the right at the British regulars. They'll have 6 dice, and they will be at long range, hitting on 4, 5s and 6s. Normally it would be a 6, but it's first fire, so that takes them to 5, and because the light infantry skirmishers firing, that takes it down to 4. So here we go. 6 dice, hittings on 4, 5s and 6s. And we have 2 hits. And now we'll roll for what damage they do, whether they get any shock. So the British infantry are in the open. So 3s to 5s will give shock. 6s will give a kill. And we have 1 kill. So that's 1 kill on the line regiment. Okay, so we're now going to have the next group of French Marine light infantry fire at the British lights. So we'll go down to the rolling tray. I've come in a little bit closer so you can actually see the roll this time. And what we'll have is 6 dice firing. Now they're at close range, so normally that's a 4 to 6 to hit, but first fire takes it 3 to 6, and then light infantry skirmishers firing will take it down to 2s to hit. So hits are 2, 3, 4, 5s and 6s. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hits. That's 5 hits on the British light infantry skirmishers, and they are again in the open, and I need 6s to kill, 3 to 5 for shock. And we have 1, 2, 3, four shock. That's a lot of shock going on to those troops. So I've not killed anything, but like I say, that's a lot of shock going on to those troops. Let's see what happens next. Okay, so we're now on to the next draw from the bag to see what happens next. Now the British have got all their units out, so the French could bring another unit out onto the field, or we could get Tiffin. So let's see what happens. So hand in, scrabble it around, mix it up and draw out, and we've got Tiffin. That's not good for the French, but good for the British. So that's where we're up to, Tiffin.